So I'm trying to read Stephen King. I picked up Misery first, and I couldn't get into it. It started right from, so I don't know if you know what Misery is about. Basically, it's this author gets into an accident, and one of his, his biggest fan, one of his readers, finds him and brings him back to her house and essentially kidnaps him, like keeps him drugged, and until, like, the only way that she will let him go is if he writes the next book in his series that she wants. I think that's kind of what it's about. But it starts off while he's in a drugged, like, haze, and that's like how the book starts. There's not much setup unless that's more backstory, and I couldn't connect with it right away, so I just let that one go. But The Shining, I was able to, like, continue reading. I kind of liked it, and now it's not my favorite again, but I can articulate why, because I have this massive page of notes. So the first act is essentially pages 1 through 142, chapters 1 through 12, and then part 1, the entirety of part 1, but also part of part 2. Like, I wouldn't say that just the first part of the book is act 1, like, that it doesn't feel like it's all of it. So, yes. The emphasis is definitely more on the characters and their backstory, and basically setting up what happened in their past and how that's going to affect how they are going to react within this tragedy, within the horror of being in this hotel, this family, their characters. So yes, that's really what it's setting up, except for the youngest one. He doesn't have much tragedy that's happened in his past. He does have a little bit, but he has, like, a gift. So that kind of felt like a fantasy aspect. Stephen King played it off as something that could be real, but he didn't sell me on, like, this is a real thing. It kind of felt like schizophrenia, which can be a real thing, but there was too much, like, precognition and mind reading within that, so it didn't feel real. So I don't know if it's supposed to. And I have found in horror novels there seems to be, like, a dark fantasy kind of aspect, at least with the other one that I read, that seemed kind of similar to this in some of the vibes. The descriptions, though, are amazing, so there's that. And then, so I think there's a certain kind of intention, a certain form of writing and storytelling that Stephen King is playing with within this novel. And basically it is, you have this event and he gets the perspective of every single person who was involved in the event. So we see each of their points of view. But I didn't realize quite that this was, or I didn't know that this was going to happen. And so, like, it's a very cool concept, and I think that it could be done well. But in this case, it really just felt repetitive, and I did not love that. So it was like, didn't we just hear about the same thing? And yes, it's from a different person's point of view, so we're getting extra information, but also, like, it kind of happened again towards the end. It wasn't the same event, but it was like, the man, what's his name, Jack Torrance, got a tour of the hotel. Now Wendy and Danny are getting a tour of the hotel, and I'm like, we already had a tour of the hotel. I don't want to hear about it again, even if it is from a different person's perspective. And so I kind of quit reading there. I don't actually know what happens there, if something, like, if it's not repetitive, if there's something else. Maybe it's just, like, focusing on this other character. He does do the side characters very well. They all seem to have, like, their own distinct voice. It does feel like Mr. Ullman, the person that everyone hates, there was a point where he didn't feel as antagonistic as he had the rest of the time. So it didn't feel consistent, but it kind of was supposed to be that way because he was talking to like a client of the hotel, or like a guest of the hotel. So he was very, you know, just manners heavy, polite, not as uppity, I guess, as he was around everyone else. But I don't know, it felt a little off. That's sort of what I don't know, it felt weird. So yeah, and so I think those were most of the notes that I did have. But for the first act, like, there were scenes, but they didn't seem to be like inciting incident, progressive complication, turning point, crisis, climax, and resolution. It was really like the first act could be summed up in backstory, setup, and getting to the hotel. Like, that was pretty much all that happened. And that kind of works, but also there was like no plot structure. So there's also that. Yes, so I guess then the question is, do I want to figure out, there was another thing where basically he just, he tells you everything that is happening, or everything that's going to happen. Like, he pretty much sets up everything that's going to happen at the beginning. He gives us a failsafe, he tells us everything that's going to happen, and now we are getting to well, it's like there's been 150 pages almost and nothing has happened, and it seems like it's too long for the rest of the story. Like, I don't know, I'm bored. So I think I'm going to be done with that one. I do have one more Stephen King book to try that I borrowed from the library. So I had like 2 horrors, and then I think this one's like a thriller, a police procedural, something like that, but it is Billy Summers. So I'm going to take a look at that one, and then I will decide, maybe Stephen King's writing just isn't for me, but I do want to take a look at that one first before I just like, Stephen King's not my kind of author. Yeah. I've read chapter 1. Billy Summers, Stephen King's writing is definitely very, like, simple. He doesn't really write long sentences. They're all just, like, all the information is there, very short. Yeah, so that, I think, just takes a little getting used to. I've read the first chapter, and I don't really know what's going on, but that's fine, technically. I feel like I should be paying more attention than I want to be. Chapters are short so far. Starting chapter 2. Hello, everyone. We are on the last leg of our journey reading Stephen King. I no longer have a book to
like hold up and show you and talk about.
So I'm not gonna like just pick up a random book and act like it's Billy Summers, but I will give you a little backstory. So I had started reading Billy Summers. I can't remember if I have a clip of that or not. And my first thoughts were just like, this is so much better than Misery. This is so much better than The Shining. I like this a lot better. And so I was a little bit more excited for that, but I only read a little bit, maybe a couple days, maybe one day of reading it. And then I had put it aside because I was probably reading other books, working on different videos. Yeah. So I put it to the side, and I had it for like a month, maybe 2. And so my library contacted me via email and was like,
hey, this book is about to be overdue, like in 2 days.
So the next day I gave it back, or maybe the day that it was due back, I don't know. So I gave the book back, but I had the audiobook. I put the audiobook on hold, and it was recently available. So I was like, no worries, I'll just listen to the audiobook. I wasn't a huge fan of the narrator, but I started listening to the audiobook yesterday. I tried to get to the point where I like finished off reading it in the book, and I think I mostly found that point. And so I was able to read a little bit of what I had or listen to a little bit of what I had already read, but also remember what it was that I was reading. So that was good. And then I made it from like 20%, probably less. Maybe it was more like 20 minutes read. I don't know what percent I was at, but I did make it to a little over 50%. And so I was just kind of listening to it as I was trying to wind down for bed, trying to get to the end of the chapter, and it got weird, but also, so a funny thing there was, I listened to it on 2x speed because that's a comfortable listening speed for me for the most part. And so like if it's much slower than that, I'm like, this is too slow, I need to speed it up. If it's too fast, sometimes I can't follow along. Even with the 2x speed, there were a few points where I'm like, I wasn't paying attention for like 5 seconds, and now I don't know what's happening. But yeah, so I had set a timer for like how much time it was supposed to take, but it actually took half that much time. So I stayed up listening to the audiobook longer than I meant to. But so Billy Summers is about Billy Summers. I mean, obviously, but so he is a hired assassin, and this is his last job. And so he just kind of keeps talking about this last job and how in all the movies and all the books, there's like the last job is a trope and it always goes wrong. So he's just kind of like waiting for it to go wrong. And it sort of does. But so he does the job, he escapes, and that is the first half of the book. And then he's in hiding, and then it goes wrong. But it goes wrong in, well, so it goes wrong in like a fine way. I was fine with writing out how that was gonna work out because basically, this is kind of spoilers, this part right here, spoilers. He was lied about the job, and so now he is just in hiding. He would have been in hiding anyway though, but he's in hiding. And what happens while he's in hiding is there's this car that drives up on his like where he's hiding out, and these 3 guys come out with and like 2 of them are holding a girl, and they like dispose of her body. And so then he goes out to see if the girl is still alive, if he can help her. And so like trigger warnings for that, because number one, it didn't really seem necessary. It kind of came out of nowhere, and it was like her injuries were described, and so like if it just seemed unnecessary. And before that, I was totally enjoying the characters, enjoying the story, enjoying how it was working, but that was like only the first half of the book, and it just felt like something else should have happened there, but instead we're getting just this weird drama. Maybe it connects, maybe this is just like, this is how it goes wrong, but I didn't really want to read the rest of that story because it felt unnecessary. It's like, why is this here? Why is this the direction? I feel like there are different directions we could have went. Why is this the one that we chose? So I just like, you know what? I don't have to keep reading this. Is my nose clearer now? I just coughed and sneezed and that was rough. Okay. So yeah, I decided to DNF at about halfway through, which was kind of sad, but at the same time, it was just too long. I think he writes too much. There's too many words, and a lot of it feels unnecessary. Even listening to audiobook. And normally when I listen to audiobooks, I prefer it. So that was the last book that I had set up. Originally, I had wanted to read the book that he co-wrote with his son. I think it's like Beastly Beauties or something like that. He also has a fairy tale one, and he has a Dark Tower. So he's written in a few different genres, and this one did seem like it was looking good. Like, I liked it at the beginning, but then it just like went off on a weird tangent. It was like a 21 Pilot song, where it's like two different songs in one song. That's kind of what it felt like. Like, we started with one story and then we got just like a different random story. I don't know if it was going back to the other one, but I didn't care enough about the random story to keep reading, so I didn't. Yeah. So even though technically I still kind of want to try some more Stephen King, maybe I'll just do like samples instead of the whole book. So maybe I will add a little bit of Stephen King to my samples videos. If you are interested in that, I will link it down below. And yeah, so I think that is it. I tried Stephen King, mostly found out that his writing just isn't for me. I only tried like 2 genres, I think, which was like horror. I don't know if that's technically thriller, Billy Summers, but like an assassin thriller sort of thing. So I've tried those genres. Maybe I'll try some more, but for right now, I do not think that Stephen King is the writer for me as a reader. But yeah, so this feels like kind of an anticlimactic video, but I was enjoying Billy Summers part of the way through. But yeah, so I think I'll just leave it at that. Thank you guys for watching. This was kind of a long journey that we went on. It was long for me, but yeah, so yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!